Hello everybody and welcome back to World of Warships Legends. My name is Spartan Elite 43 and tonight we are taking our very first look at the new Tier 7 Premium Japanese Light Cruiser, Suzuya. So, let's get into it. We're running Isoroku Yamamoto. We have switched to Nikolai Kuznetsov and Charles Madden. I was running Einstein and Madden for the turret traverse, but I need the extra range on this thing, so I went with the extra range. Anyway, we're running Beyond Range, Igniter, Velocious, and Fixated, with Fully Packed as our consumable. Now, you may want to go, instead of Velocious, use Fortified, potentially. That's up to you, because you really do get absolutely shredded in this thing. But I don't think the Fortified is going to do you much good unless you're against another cruiser. Most of the time, it's just Citadel City for any battleships that hit you anywhere on your ship. So let's look at the stats. We are actually running the Aiming Systems Mod 1, Steering Gears Mod 2, Concealment System Mod, and Gunfire Control System Mod for that extra range again. We have the Community Contributor Flag, and we are running the camo that comes with it. I am running an Epic Battle Booster on this for that extra range, because you need it. Of course, in the match that we're getting into, most of the time we're not going to actually be using that range, but either way. Survivability, 38,000 hit points with a 10% torpedo damage reduction. Artillery, you have 15 155mm guns, which reach out to 19 kilometers with this build, and have a 9.8 second reload time. 180-degree turn time is 24.8 seconds. HE shell damage is 2,700 with a 14% chance to set fires. AP shells, 3,300. For the 127mm Type 89A1 secondaries, you have 8 of them, and they reach out to 5.2 kilometers and reload in 5 seconds, with a 2,100 maximum shell damage and 11% chance to set fires. So your secondaries are almost as good as your main batteries, other than range, obviously. Torpedoes, you have 610mm quadruple launchers. You have 8 of them. You have 2 launchers on either side. You technically have 16 of them, but you have 8 of them per side, is what I mean. 109 second reload time, 180-degree turn time, 6 seconds, 17,233 maximum damage per torp. And torpedo detectability range is 1.7 kilometers. Torpedo range is 11 kilometers, which is nice, and the torpedo speed is 56 knots, so they're pretty slow. But that sometimes works into your advantage, and I'll explain that in a little bit. AA defense, you have 4 13mm Type 93s that reach out to 1.2 kilometers and do 7 damage per second. You have 8 25mm Type 96 guns, which reach out to 3.1 kilometers and do 20 damage per second. And you have 8 127mm guns that reach out to 5 kilometers and do 40 damage per second. Maneuverability, 36.6 knots, which is pretty good. Not amazing, but pretty good. Turning circle radius of 750 meters. That is the downside of this ship, and I'll go over that. Rudder shift time, I've gotten down to being fantastic. 4.5 seconds on a cruiser, pretty good. But the ship isn't as shifty as some of the other cruisers that are out there, and that plays havoc with you. You have to keep your distance when dealing with battleships. Otherwise, they hit you. A lot of times, you don't get a second chance. So keep that in mind. Concealment, 10.6 kilometer by sea, 6.6 by air, 2 guaranteed, and 6 while firing in smoke. Armor, bow plating, you have 25 millimeters of armor, which is just enough to deal with most things except for 15-inch and above battleships or cruiser. So keep that in mind. If they have guns that are larger than 15 inches, they're going straight through your bow. Okay, if we look at the actual Citadel, oops, let's get rid of the turrets, you can see that you have a huge Citadel. It does appear to have some like turtleback, or at least angling on the top of the Citadel, but at the same time, it doesn't do a dang thing for you. So keep that in mind. Anytime any battleships look at this, or a cruiser if they have AP loaded in your broadside, battleships, no matter where they hit you, are going to citadel you. It's just, it is literally a Mogami with 152mm guns. Okay? Everything that's bad about the Mogami, this thing carries over. So keep that in mind. Overview. You have guns aplenty. You have a high number of guns. Allows for a lot of damage from a single salvo. You have superior HE damage, above average HE shell damage. And it is agile, above average ability to change direction. In theory, yes. In practice, no. So yes, your rudder can change direction very quickly, but the ship doesn't change direction very quickly. It's still good enough, especially if you keep your distance. But if I'm telling you, if you rely on dodging, you're going to make sure that you have to like look into the future. Otherwise, one mistake, that's all it takes. Suzuya was built as a light cruiser. Her armor and equipment were on par with heavy cruisers, despite her being a smaller size and displacement. The number of 155mm main caliber guns was increased to 15 to compensate for the lower mass of the shells in comparison to the 203mm main guns of Washington Naval Treaty cruisers. She entered service in 1937, and there were 4 of them in the series. So, let's take a look at her. It's not a bad looking ship, and like I said, if you're a fire starter kind of guy, you're going to enjoy this ship. I am not. Like, T-Bull, I imagine, loves this ship. Hipper's another one that comes to mind that really enjoys, like, kiting cruisers. These people will enjoy this ship. If you are not a fire starter person, this is not going to be a ship that you want to bring in. So, with that being said, let's get to the gameplay. Alrighty, so we are going to be on the brand new map, Hotspot. And we're going to try to showcase this ship as best we can. Both the strengths, the weaknesses, and everything in between. So, right out the bat, you guys know I'm not the fire starter kind of guy, right? So, the playstyle I find is kind of boring, and then it struggles to carry games that your team might otherwise... Like, if you had a heavy cruiser that could take hits and deal good armor-piercing damage. Not that this thing can't deal good armor-piercing damage. Don't get it twisted. The AP on this thing is actually surprisingly good. I had a broadside Bismarck in the last match that I absolutely chunked. I was hitting him for 7,000 damage a salvo, kind of reminding me of the Cleveland. So keep that in mind. The AP is nothing to sleep on in this ship, and I've also Citadel cruisers doing it. So if you get the opportunity to use the AP, go for it. But most of the time you're going to be using the HE out of this thing. And to that right, the issue that I have with this is the same issue that I have with the Mogami, okay? It just doesn't have that carry potential that you need. Because you cannot make a mistake in the ship. You make one mistake, you're dead. Most of the time. And we're going to showcase that in a little bit. I get fortunate in this match to not be outright deleted, but I could have been, and probably should have been. Now, Hotspot's an interesting match. This is only the second time I've actually played this map since the new update. So keep that in mind as well. Now we get a shot over the mountain at the Vladdy, and then we get detected right away. It was the Wichita that was spotting us. So once we get behind the thing, we actually go dark again. We get a good hit and an immediate fire on the Vladdy. And so that's going to give us some damage right off the bat, which is nice. And the thing that I've come to figure out with fire starters is to stop shooting people once you get a single fire. If they don't put it out immediately, stop shooting them. Just let the fire burn. Because if you keep shooting them, they're more likely to put that fire out. And then I can never seem to get another fire after somebody damage cons. I swear, I can't get another fire. I have the worst RNG on the planet for fires. So, and every time they damage con, it always happens when they damage con one fire. Like, for me, if I damage con a single fire, I immediately get, like, half my ship blown apart, or I get set on fire twice, or, you know, I take a torp and end up flooding to death. Like, those sorts of things happen to me when I hit an early damage con. But, everybody else seems to get away with it. You know, it's just one of those things. That's why I never put out a single fire unless I know I'm not going to get shot again. But, anyway, we've got a Wichita and a Monarch pushing up on us. I've got one battleship. Now, my battleship should know that there is a freaking destroyer capturing Charlie. So why is my battleship going into Charlie like a crazy person? Now, we set our torpedo traps out there. Now, remember, these are very long-range, very slow torpedoes. So keep that in mind. They take a long time to get there, but that can work to your advantage. People aren't expecting it. As long as you launch these torpedoes where you think they may end up going, you can catch a lot of people off guard because they just take so freaking long to get to them. And so we're getting into a gunfight with this Wichita, showcasing a little bit of how my ship doesn't turn that great. And that's what I'm talking about. It's kind of like it turns well, and the rudder shift is fantastic, but the ship takes a little extra time to get turning. Once it starts turning, it seems to be okay, but getting it to turn is a different story. And here we're trying to dodge back to avoid this Wichita shells. We managed to do it. And we launched our torpedoes off of the other side of our ship. You've got to be cognizant of the fact if you're fighting a Japanese cruiser that is kiting away from you, that you're going to have torpedoes coming at you a lot. So keep that in mind. They're very long-range torpedoes. You've got to be aware of them. Now, fortunately, this Wichita is going to completely forget that we have torpedoes off both sides of a ship. He's seen 2 sets of torpedoes come at him. He's figuring he's probably fine. And so now he charges back forward to start shooting at our battleship that has just been torpedoed by the destroyer that was in Charlie. And so as he charges forward, he's actually unknowingly put himself in position to take some torps. And it looks like we're going to possibly get 2 torpedo hits here. There's the first one, and it's significantly reduced down to 9,000, and then we do 7,600 damage with the second one because bow damage saturation. But either way, we caused flooding. That flooding seems to be sticking, and we get some fires on top of that. So we've got him burning, we've got him flooding. He manages to take down, well, I guess the Le Fantasque managed to take down our Bismarck. And so as we hit him again, he goes down, or going down to our flooding. So we turn in, we avoid his shells, no big deal. We know that the destroyer is still in the area, we are still detected. So we know the destroyer is still here. Now, because we're not shooting anymore, we go undetected. So that kind of gives me an idea of where the destroyer is in the cap in relation to me. So I'm going to turn out, try to get some torps into these gaps into this island. I know the Monarch was out there. He didn't come out to fight me with the Wichita, so he's probably doubling back. And sure enough, we get him detected. It's not us detecting him, but somebody has him detected. And even though we shouldn't have any chance of actually hitting this man, we're just going to put the torps in those gaps in the island. And you'll see right there, we just throw all the torps out there and let things happen, okay? It's just like the Italian cruisers in that sense. Now, I'm trying to use the auto-aim to allow me to shoot over the island, but I don't have the arc to go over the island at this short of range on that Monarch. Now, these shells seem pretty floaty. They're not hard to get on target, but against shiftier targets at long range, you're going to struggle to hit them. We get a torp hit, and we get a fire right there, which is huge. And he's letting that burn. And then he damage cons. Notice my damage stopped ticking up. What's still on the way in that direction, right? Our torpedoes. So if we can manage to get a flood with those torpedoes, that's going to be a perma-flood, and that's going to do massive damage to that map. Now, we are detected by the destroyer over here in the center of the map, and this is kind of one of the reasons why I'm pushing this direction. You can see torps headed towards the team. And Vladdy is behind the island. Once again, I'm trying to use that auto aim to get some shots over the island. I can't see his ship, so I'm just guessing. And we do get a hit and a flood on the Monarch. Only a single one, but look at the damage from the flood ticking up. Like, it ain't no joke, man. Flooding is deadly. And so we're going to get pretty fortunate. Now, this, unfortunately, is going to kind of play into the next moment here, where I get a little complacent, not paying attention, and the guy that I just hit and set flood on, or like I've already set him on fire, I'm flooding him, I'm detected right now, okay? The destroyer has me lit. The destroyer is currently lit. We're shooting at the Wichita here, and we're not paying attention to the fact that, you know, there's a battleship over there who's very angry with us. And he almost takes us out. He took 2/3 of our health with that salvo. Of course, we're healing some of it back, so it ends up being about half our health that he gets with that salvo. But he also destroyed one of our turrets. Now, we get some shots out on the Le Fantasque, and unfortunately, we're just not leading him far enough. but we're trying to hit him anyway. And you can see that Wichita's there with the Monarch still in their little cubbyhole, trying to stay alive. And we're doing everything in our power to not get hit here. We get a fire on the Lay Fantasque. He immediately damage cons it. We're going to turn back around so that we can get all of our guns to bear again and see if we can't get to the inside. Now, I saw those shots coming in, and he almost got me again. That's 2 mistakes in this match that I got very lucky. This is a British battleship. Of all the things to be playing, like, you know, games with, I guess would be the word. Like, to play games with a British battleship's armor piercing in a freaking cruiser that gets dev struck, like, every time somebody looks at it wrong. Yeah, it's not a smart plan at all. But notice I already launched some torpedoes out there at that Wichita as well. He's reversing right now. We're not in range, but there's a chance that these guys come out. Now, because I've lost so much health, I have decided, okay, let's not throw this match for our team. Our team has the points lead. We don't have to do anything cute. We don't have to do anything crazy. All we got to do is survive at this point. We have a 2-cap to 2-cap, you know, even tie right now. But we have a 120-point advantage, which is huge. So, the thought process was to just use this mountain to keep me safe from the Wichita and the Monarch. And try to help my team shoot at the Lay Fantasque. Now, our Udachi gets himself killed by the Lay Fantasque, which is unfortunate. But, you know, what can you do? We get the shots out there, and it looked like we were going to get the finish, but he turned out just in time to avoid us. But luckily, Ochakov manages to finish him off, and that maintains our lead, which is big. We have a ship advantage and a points advantage, but the enemy has some pretty good positioning, and the positioning that they have really allows them to limit who can shoot them. Now, I doubled back here because I wanted to potentially start shooting it over this mountain to that Vladdy to kind of give him a reason to not sit behind that island. That was the plan. But you can see, like, even with our extended range, like, we're struggling to hit this man. He's right at the edge of our range. He's reversing away from the island. Even though I'm using the auto-aim to try to, like, figure out where we need to aim here, we're not getting consistent hits on him, and we're not able to do anything to him. So, I'm starting to get a little antsy. Our team is not exactly doing anything smart right now. If you look at their positioning on the map, like, against what the rest of the team is doing, you can kind of get a feel for why I feel like this match is very, very quickly going to go horribly wrong. And we're not exactly wrong in that sense. I'm going to go ahead, circle back, and start to potentially get some crossfires on these 2 guys that are sitting in this gap. They've got a position where they're relatively safe, and that Wichita is capable of actually still shooting our guy. So I'm going to start trying to influence them, get them out of there. Now, we lost our Ochakov, and that brings the game a lot closer. We're only up by, what, 30 points now? 40 points max? We get a fire on Wichita immediately. He's not going to let that burn. He's going to go ahead and put that out, which is inadvisable. But, you know, at the time, I can't shoot him, so it's actually a good play for him, unless somebody else can set him on fire between now and then. So, right now, I'm just measuring everybody up. I'm like, okay, who's doing what, and where can I potentially get involved to the point where I can not die and lose the match for the team? And it's an iffy situation, but the Grosse Kurfürst manages to get rid of their Monarch, and that makes things a lot simpler for me, because I don't mind going toe-to-toe with a Wichita, even though he has a decided health advantage. What I do mind is a battleship that can absolutely obliterate me through the bow. So now that the Monarch is out of the picture, I can move in and start working on this Wichita. However, if you look at the positioning of our 2 battleships versus where the Vladdy we know is, you can see that it's not going to go well for our battleships. Like, it's just not. Grosse Kurfürst plays a very good game in this one, with the exception of this ending part where he's broadside to a Vladivostok for a long period of time. And that Vladdy will eventually end up killing him, I believe. Now, Wichita managed to get absolutely punished by, I believe, Grosse Kurfürst. So, again, Gross-Kerfer's played a great game here. The only issue is he left himself open to be obliterated at the end. And just as our shells get there, Massachusetts finishes off Wichita. Now, Vladdy takes out our Gross-Kerfers. That leaves the Massachusetts, who is still broadside to a Vladdy, or mostly broadside. He's turning away now, which is a good move. And that leaves me and I believe an Alaska to attack this Vladdy. Now, the good news for us is that the Vladdy has to choose between me and an Alaska. Alaska's a lot closer, has a lot bigger guns, and is a lot bigger threat than just this little fire starter is, right? So he's going to focus them, and we can tell by the way his guns are pointing. If you're looking at a target and their barrels are pointing you, guess what? You're the one he's looking at. Just throwing that out there. Some people may not have known that. If those barrels are looking at you, you're going to have a bad day. But sure enough, the Alaska has the bow armor to bow tank the 16-inch guns of the Vladdy. So he's going to have a pretty easy time closing the distance and eventually, hopefully, getting the broadside of the Vladdy and forcing him to make some mistakes. Meanwhile, we're going to start capturing this base and trying to use the island as cover initially. And then, like I said, once he starts reversing, which he's starting to do now, you can see in the wake behind his ship that he's reversing. So now you can see the smoke from his stacks. It's two big keys to which direction a ship is going. But we get some shots at the Vladdy here, and we're going to try to set him on fire. Now, he's already on fire once, and so we're going to try to hit towards the rear of the ship if we can. But we're going to struggle to do a whole lot to this Vladdy. We don't have EOP, and even with the improved penetration of the HE shells of Japanese ships, these 155mm guns do struggle a little bit in the damage department against battleships. But this guy has turned, given himself up to be shot by either the Massachusetts or the Alaska, and somebody punched him pretty good. We do have a fire burning on the Vladdy, and since he just damage conned, that's going to burn for a little while. And we get a second fire on the rear of his ship. Now, just about this time, the game is over, but we have won 983 points to 813. And I hope I showcase the weakness and the strengths of the ship as best I can. I know it's not a great game, but you guys know me. I'm not a fire starter kind of guy. I'm not very good in them. So, second on the team, Gross-Kerfers, like I said, had a pretty solid game. 2,800 base XP in a battleship is not a bad game at all, especially a legendary battleship. So if you're liking what I'm doing, punch the like button, leave a comment below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and as always, I will see you in the next video.